Imagine stepping back, way back into the 1950s. America felt different then. Quieter, maybe.
Definitely quieter in many places.
Yeah.
People often felt safe,
Yeah.
didn't always lock their doors.
Right. And then picture that calm just shattering, replaced by something truly terrifying.
Yeah.
That's sort of the core of the story we're getting into today.
A really stark contrast.
Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today, we're taking a close look at one of America's most, infamous true crime stories, the killing spree of Charles Starkweather and Caril Fugate.
It's a case that really shook the nation back then.
Our source material is mainly drawn from a really compelling YouTube video that doesn't just recount the facts, but it also connects this historical crime to modern takes, even mentioning the K-drama Chief Detective 1958.
Which is interesting, seeing how that era is portrayed now versus the reality then.
Exactly. So our mission today, we want to unpack what happened during this horrible spree, try to understand the people involved, Charles and Caril.
And importantly, look at what it tells us about law enforcement back then. Before computers, before DNA.
Yeah, the challenges they faced, and maybe explore why this story, decades later, still has such a grip on us.
It really does.
Okay, let's unpack this. This isn't just some forgotten crime. It's etched into the history of Nebraska, and really the whole country. So let's start with the setting. Can you take us back? Lincoln, Nebraska, mid-1950s. What was it like before the storm?
Lincoln then was worlds away from a big city today. It was small, very tight-knit. Life really revolved around agriculture.
Lots of cornfields, I imagine.
Oh yeah, vast cornfields. It painted this picture of, peace, tranquility, crime. Almost unheard of, really. People felt incredibly safe.
Doors unlocked, kind of safe.
Pretty much, yeah. The idea of a random, brutal violence, it was just alien.
Yeah.
And that's the world Charles Starkweather grew up in.
Okay, so tell us about his early life. Is there any sign back then of what was to come?
Well, Charles Starkweather was born there in Lincoln, November 1938. He was the third of 7 kids.
Big family.
Yeah. And he stood out a bit, physically. Red hair, bowed legs, which unfortunately made him a target later. But initially, the family was working class, but not poor. They had enough food, clothes. He was apparently a pretty happy kid at first. Close to his parents, got along okay with his siblings.
But obviously that didn't last. What were the turning points? What started to change him?
The first big blow was his father, Guy Starkweather. He got rheumatoid arthritis, really severe.
And back then, treatment was limited.
Very limited. Basically untreatable in terms of stopping the pain and damage. He couldn't work. So bang, the family's finances went downhill fast. His mom had to go out and work to support everyone.
That's a huge stressor.
Huge. And right around the same time, Charles starts school, Saratoga Elementary, then Earring Junior High. And the bullying started. Mercilessly, apparently. For the red hair, the legs, and they thought he was slow or stupid.
So you've got this double whammy, family turmoil, financial stress, and then constant bullying at school. How does that shape a kid?
It seems to have created this internal pressure cooker. His response was extreme. He decided, basically, if he couldn't avoid being bullied, he'd become the bully.
Wow.
Yeah, he flipped completely, became a full-blown delinquent, started picking fights with everyone just to show he was tough, to assert dominance. He got really into James Dean.
The rebel image.
Exactly. Idolized him. The only place he seemed to find any positive outlet was Fizzed, where he could just, exert himself physically.
But there's a strange side of him too, wasn't there? Friends said he could be kind.
That's the paradox. Some kids who hung around him, maybe for protection, said one-on-one he could be really kind, caring even. But they also saw this switch flip. He could turn into a beast, as they put it. Hurt strangers, anyone he didn't like. His reputation got so bad.
Parents warned their kids away.
Absolutely. Forbade them from hanging out with him. So by high school, he was basically uncontrollable. Dropped out of Lincoln High. The path was pretty much set by then.
After leaving school, his life takes another turn. He meets someone who becomes central to this whole tragedy. Tell us about Caril Fugate.
Caril Fugate. She was only 13 when they met. Charles was 18.
Big age difference.
Huge. He met her because a friend of his was dating Caril's older sister. And Charles became, obsessed. He actually took a job at a newspaper warehouse right next to her school just so he could see her every day.
That's intense.
Very. And it worked. They started a relationship.
Yeah.
Which, understandably, caused problems.
You'd think her parents would be concerned. The age gap, his reputation.
Oh, they were. Definitely raised red flags for them. But for whatever reason, maybe they were intimidated by Charles. Maybe they didn't know how to handle Caril. They hesitated to really step in forcefully, and that let the relationship continue.
And then something seemingly minor happens, a driving lesson.
Yeah.
That escalates things dramatically.
Yeah, it seems almost trivial, but it's a catalyst. Charles decided to teach Caril to drive in his father's car. Yeah. She crashed it, damaged it pretty badly. And for Charles's father, who was already fed up with his behavior, that was the absolute final straw. He disowned Charles right there, kicked him out of the house.
So suddenly he's homeless.
Homeless, reduced to collecting trash, selling it just to survive. It was a really low point.
And this experience, being cast out, struggling like that, it seems to have cemented a really dark worldview in him.
It absolutely did. He developed this kind of twisted, basic philosophy. He figured everyone's equal, which meant, in his mind, that nothing really mattered. Morals, consequences, irrelevant.
That's terrifying logic.
It is. It basically gave him permission, in his own head, to do whatever he wanted. Crime, robbery, violence. It was all on the table now. He saw it as a way to get what he wanted, maybe even get revenge on a world he felt had wronged him.
And it didn't take long for that philosophy to turn deadly. Who was the first person he killed? What happened?
His first victim was a man named Robert Culvert. He was a gas station attendant. Charles wanted to buy a stuffed animal, a doll, for Caril.
A doll?
Yeah. He tried to buy it on credit, but Culvert refused him. And Charles just snapped. This refusal, this small slight, it was enough. He went home, stole a shotgun from his parents' house, came back, robbed him. Culvert took about $100.
But he didn't just rob him.
No, that wasn't enough. He forced Culvert into his car, drove him out to a remote, deserted area, and shot him in the head, cold-blooded.
Was it just about the money or the doll, or was it more? Was it proving his new philosophy?
It feels like more than just robbery, doesn't it? More like revenge for the refusal, and maybe, a test, proving to himself that he could do it, that his nihilistic view was actionable, that he really was free from consequences in his own mind.
The horror didn't end there. Just a few weeks later, January 21st, 1958, Charles goes to Caril's house. This is where things escalate into an absolute nightmare. What happened?
He went to the house, and Caril's mother, Velda Bartlett, and her stepfather, Marion Bartlett, they met him at the door. They told him straight out they didn't approve of him seeing Caril.
They wanted him gone.
Yeah. They told him to leave her alone, let her focus on school, told him he needed to get a proper job. Basically, they rejected him, just like his own father had.
And that rejection.
It sent him into a rage. He went back to his car, got the shotgun, stormed back into the house, just opened fire. He shot Velda in the face, shot Marion in the head.
Oh my God.
And then he turned on Caril's little half-sister, Betty Jean Bartlett. She was only 2 years old. He beat her with the stock of the shotgun and then stabbed her in the neck. Killed her too.
The brutality is just unimaginable. And then what he did next, concealing the bodies. It's so cold, so calculated.
It really is. It shows a complete detachment. He moved all 3 bodies to an unfinished house nearby that the family was building. Velda, he wrapped her in some bedding, put her in a bathroom. Marion was left out near a chicken coop. And little bitty Jean, he put her body in a cardboard box and left it on a toilet seat.
Just clinical disposal, no emotion.
Non-apparent, just cleaning up in his mind.
This leads us right into one of the biggest questions of the whole case, Caril's role. Her story is completely different from Charles's.
Completely different. Caril always insisted she came home, found her family dead, and that Charles then basically kidnapped her. Forced her to go along with him, threatening to kill her if she didn't cooperate. She swore she never killed anyone herself.
But Charles said?
Charles painted a totally different picture. He said she was right there with him, a willing participant, helping him every step of the way. The truth, it's still debated today. Was she a terrified hostage or a complicit partner? It's deeply unsettling.
And incredibly, they stayed in that house with the bodies hidden nearby for 6 days. How did they avoid being discovered immediately?
Well, Caril apparently played a big part in that. Relatives came by, checking on the family. Caril met them, lied, said her parents were sick with the flu, couldn't see anyone.
Buying them time.
Exactly. It bought them almost a week. They finally fled on January 27th. That's when relatives got really suspicious, reported them missing, and the police finally went in and found the bodies.
And this discovery must have sent shockwaves. But finding the killers, harder back then.
Oh, much harder.
Yeah.
Think about it, 1958. Forensics were basic. Fingerprinting was slow. Painstaking work. Communication between states or even counties teletype machines, phone calls, no instant alerts, no shared databases like today.
So they could just drive away and disappear relatively easily for a while?
For a while, yes. Given a head start. It's like in that K-drama, Chief Detective 1958. They show detectives relying on wit, observation, pounding the pavement because they just didn't have the tech. Starkweather and Fugate benefited from that lack of immediate tracking.
Tragically, once they were on the run, the violence didn't stop. It actually seemed to escalate. Who did they target next?
They ended up at a farm out in Bennett, Nebraska. Charles remembered his father mentioning an old friend who lived there, a man named August Meyer. He was 70 years old.
An old family friend.
Yeah. They got to the farm, and Charles just walked in and shot Meyer dead while he was sitting in his rocking chair. No apparent reason other than needing resources. He even killed Meyer's dog. Then they looted the house food, valuables, anything they could carry, and stole Meyer's car.
Just random, opportunistic violence against anyone in their path.
Exactly. Anyone who could provide something they needed or just happened to be there. Life meant nothing to him at this point.
That stolen car didn't last long, though. It got stuck, didn't it? Leading to another horrific encounter.
That's right. The car got stuck in mud somewhere. So they pretended they were stranded, flagged down a passing car. Inside were two teenagers, Robert Jensen and Carol King. Just kids, 16 or 17. Sweethearts out together.
Oh, no.
Charles pulled the gun, forced them out, and made Jensen drive them all to this remote, abandoned storm cellar or bunker. And there, he shot Robert Jensen 6 times in the head.
And Carol
King was also shot in the head. Her body was found later, unclothed. She'd been sexually assaulted and stabbed as well. After killing them, Charles just took their car and left their bodies in the bunker.
Just brutal. And the discovery of those bodies must have ramped up the fear across the state.
Exponentially. People were terrified. And again, there was conflicting testimony later about Carol King's death. Charles tried to claim Carol killed her. She vehemently denied it, saying she was just trying not to be killed herself. Another layer of uncertainty.
The spree then takes this horrifying turn back to Lincoln, where it all started.
Right back to Lincoln. They broke into the home of a prominent, wealthy couple, Chester Ward, an industrialist, and his wife, Clara.
A very different target.
Yes. Inside, they first found the maid, Lillian Fenkel. She was 51 and deaf. Charles attacked her and stabbed her to death. Repeatedly. Later, Clara Ward came home. Charles ambushed her, stabbed her to death too. Finally, around 6 p.m., Chester Ward got home from work. Charles shot him in the back of the head.
3 more people dead in their own home.
And then, just like before, they looted the place, took valuables, and stole the Ward's luxury Packard car.
The series of killings, especially such a well-known family, in the heart of Lincoln, the city must have been in absolute panic.
Total panic. You'd have to picture Lincoln, this quiet town, suddenly terrorized. Men started carrying guns, patrolling their own streets. It wasn't just rumor. People were genuinely afraid.
Did the authorities step up the response?
Oh, massively. The National Guard was called out. They set up roadblocks on every single road leading in or out of Lincoln. Checkpoints everywhere. It was practically a lockdown. Police, county sheriffs, even volunteers on horseback were searching frantically. It was this huge, desperate manual effort to find them. No GPS tracking, no helicopters with thermal imaging back then, just boots on the ground everywhere.
But even with the city practically sealed off, Charles made one last desperate move outside Lincoln.
He did. They were trying to get rid of the Ward's distinctive Packard, maybe swap it for something less noticeable. Near Douglas, Wyoming, they came across a salesman, Merle Collison, who was asleep in his parked car. Charles shot him.
Another random victim.
Just needed his car. But then Charles had trouble driving Collison's car. Maybe it had a different kind of transmission he wasn't used to, a manual clutch or something. He couldn't get it going properly for a quick getaway.
A small detail, but crucial.
Incredibly crucial. That delay kept him there.
And that delay led directly to his capture, didn't it? Tell us about those final moments.
It was dramatic. While Charles was struggling with Collison's car, another motorist, a guy named Joe Sprinkle, saw him having trouble and pulled over to help. Just being a good Samaritan.
And Charles?
Pulled the gun on him, of course. But Sprinkle was apparently a bigger guy, and he fought back. Actually managed to wrestle the gun away from Charles, or at least challenge him.
Wow. Brave man.
Incredibly brave. And right at that moment, a local deputy, William R. Kelly, happened to drive by, saw the commotion, and pulled over. Charles saw the deputy, knew the game was up, jumped back into the Ward Packard, and took off.
What about Carol?
This is key. As Charles sped off, Carol ran straight to Deputy Kelly, pointed at the fleeing car, and said, It's Starkweather. He's going to kill me. He kidnapped me.
Claiming victim status immediately.
Right away. So a high-speed chase starts. They're flying down the highway over 100 miles an hour. The police are firing at the Packard.
Well, real movie scene.
Absolutely. One of the bullets hits Charles, grazes his ear, or maybe shatters the window near him. He panics, swerves, the car goes off the road and stops. And that was it. They dragged him out. Charles Starkweather was captured January 29, 1958, near Douglas, Wyoming. The 8-day reign of terror was finally over.
So capture, and then the legal process begins. What happened during the interrogations? Did their stories align then?
Not at all. Charles immediately started blaming Caril, said she was in on it, helped him, even enjoyed it sometimes, painted her as a willing accomplice from start to finish.
Hint Caril.
Caril stuck to her story, absolutely adamant. She was a hostage, she was terrified, she only did what he said because she thought he'd kill her next if she didn't. She insisted she never killed anyone. Two completely opposing narratives.
Which presents a huge challenge for the legal system, doesn't it? How do you sort that out, especially with her being so young, claiming coercion? It's a really tough question.
A very tough question.
Yeah.
And their fates ultimately reflected that ambiguity, perhaps. Caril Ann Fugate went on trial. Despite her age and claims, she was found guilty of first-degree murder.
Sentenced to life in prison.
Life at 14. Well, she was 14 when the crimes happened, slightly older by the trial. But yes, a life sentence. However, years later, in 1973, her sentence was reviewed and reduced. She became eligible for parole.
Then she was released.
She was paroled in 1976, lived a quiet life afterwards, got married, changed her name. She always maintained her innocence, right up until she died in a car accident in 2013.
And Charles Starkweather.
Charles was tried, convicted of first-degree murder, specifically Robert Colvert's murder, though the others were obviously part of the context. He received the death penalty.
And he was executed.
Yes. He was executed by electric chair at the Nebraska State Penitentiary, June 25th, 1959, just over a year after the crime spree ended. Reports say even then he was claiming self-defense, somehow twisting reality in his mind.
So looking back, what's the lasting impact of legacy of this case?
Well, it became this huge landmark case in American crime history. For one, it starkly highlighted just how limited policing was back then, before widespread communication tech, before advanced forensics.
It forced changes, maybe.
It certainly spurred more cooperation between different law enforcement agencies. The sheer scale of the manhunt required unprecedented coordination. And it just remains this chilling example of a sudden explosive killing spree. 10 innocent people killed in just 8 days by this young couple. It left a deep scar on Nebraska, and it's a story that continues to fascinate and horrify us.
It really does. And I think what you said about the limitations back then, it offers a window into a completely different world of crime solving, doesn't it? The sheer effort needed when you didn't have today's tools. Which leaves us with maybe a final thought, something to chew on. Imagine living through that time in that community. No 24/7 news cycle, no social media updates, no surveillance cameras everywhere. Just this terrifying knowledge that killers were out there, somewhere close, operating in the shadows. How much more amplified must that fear have been?
Unimaginably amplified, I think. The uncertainty alone would have been terrifying.
If you are interested in seeing how detective work happened in a similar era, maybe with a bit less darkness and more procedural focus, we really recommend checking out the K-drama Chief Detective 1958.
Oh yeah, that's a great recommendation in this context. It's set in 1960s Seoul, so right around that same time period.
And it does a fantastic job showing detectives solving crimes without any modern tech. They use observation, legwork, sometimes really clever, almost surprising methods.
Like using community informants as their human CCTV, things like that.
Yeah.
It shows ingenuity born out of necessity.
Exactly. It's got crime, it's got some humor, great performances from Lee Dong-wee and Lee Ja-hoon, really captures that era. And you can stream it now on Disney Plus Hotstar.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today. It was a dark story, but a fascinating one. We hope you found these insights as compelling as we did.